Thank you very much for joining us this morning during a previous conversation. And I think one of the reasons why we wanted to get together today was talking about some of the pressures that the dealerships are feeling in terms of accurate market pricing. One of the things that we have seen a lot of our partners struggling with is having a successful street purchase strategy and utilizing our software effectively, but having some inconsistent results because of caution about market pricing. So what we've seen is a lower number of acquisitions than the appraisal. And one of the things I know that we've spoken about in the past is measuring what we want to manage and determining what your appraisal effectiveness is.
Yeah, it's really the most truest sense of the word. It's the only really accurate measuring stick on really what you're doing with appraisal. So it's simply stated, Mark, it's this: it's the number of vehicles that you deliver divided by the number of appraisals. And if you are going to deliver 100 vehicles, you need to be appraising 160. And frankly, I think the things that I work with my dealer clients on when it comes to becoming more effective with appraisals falls into three things. Number one, you have to be consistently thinking, this is an appraisal, is the best lead you've ever had walk into your dealership. So just imagine if it was a high credit score with all parties that were going to make the decision there, a paid off trade, half down, and they were willing to pay full price for your car. If we had that lead walk into our dealership, we treat them like they've never been treated before. They would have a VIP experience like you've never seen, because that quantifies the most desirable lead that a dealership could ever want. Well, if you turn that around and think about an appraisal as the most valuable lead you've ever had, what you really end up thinking is, well, if I can steal it, or if I don't know if I really want it. Well, every appraisal treated like that lead I just described turns out to be a completely different experience. So I encourage my dealers to think it's the best lead you ever had, and here's why. Because the total opportunity for profits on every appraisal that you capture and put through your process and through your system creates a waterfall of gross profit that averages between $6,000 and $7,000 when you take the waterfall all the way through. Whether it's I sold them a car, I reconditioned the car, I ended up selling their parents a new car, the lifetime value of a customer, all those things added up. You just have to recognize that appraisal is very, very valuable. The other thing I encourage my dealers to think about is act as if there's other bidders. We've all heard about the auction frenzy where, a bidder starts and then you go, well, he's smarter than I am. He must know the car's worth more. And so we start bidding too. Unfortunately, when there's only one bidder on the vehicle, meaning the person looking at the vehicle and appraising it, we have a tendency to think, well, since I'm the only bidder, this is the one I can steal. And frankly, it actually works in reverse. You got to act like there's 100 other bidders on this vehicle. And how am I going to establish that I need this car? I want this car because I want that waterfall of gross. And if you just turn the mental thing around into, I know that I have to have a phenomenally consistent process that treats every lead like it's the best lead we've ever had, act like there's other bidders. The reality is what starts to change mentally is we start taking appraisals as serious as anything we do in the store. And frankly, I can't think of a more important process in a dealership than having a consistent market-based appraisal process.
Yeah, we couldn't agree with you more, Ed. It is often surprising in our discussions with buyers or pre-owned directors, even general managers, about the bidding at auction.
Right.
We don't hesitate to add money to make the deal on a desirable vehicle, but we may really hold back on that appraisal with a private seller that's right there. And I know in our previous discussions, we're both nerds about holding costs, right? So I always try to add that into the waterfall that you referenced. Is it can take 7 to 10 days to get that auction vehicle processed and prepared for, frontline. That's if you're doing it really well. So you've already got a lost opportunity when you can pick up a private, seller vehicle and have that in front line, in just a couple of days.
That's exactly right, Mark. I was just at a dealer group last week. They got 2 stores. The average holding cost was $56 a day, and they're buying 80% of their vehicles at auction, and they're not geographically friendly to the auction. So it takes 4 days just to get the vehicle there. And they weren't adding up that was like $250. Plus now it takes another 5 days to get it through recon because their processes were inefficient. So now they've got 4 or 5, now they've got 9 days. Plus they weren't taking pictures of the vehicle. They were subbing that out to a service that only came in once a week on Thursdays. So, the average time to line, or the time to actually marketability, was like 15 days. We take 15 days times $56. And the only reason they called me was because they weren't making any money in their used car department. Well, it was pretty easy to figure out that the quickest way to make money in your used car department is to turn your vehicles, and the quickest way to turn your vehicles to get the ones that you can get started on the minute that you get the keys and write the check. And those are the ones that come in off the street. So frankly, that's where the money is. The money is in velocity of turn. The money is not in, you can sell a less desirable car if you sell it faster and price it right, and make as much return on your investment as you can buying that sweetheart at the auction and wait 15 days to get it in.
I couldn't agree more. And something you said earlier was really interesting. The cascading, the waterfall effect is something that oftentimes our dealer partners don't realize. For 60 or 90 days of operating the van software with the communication capabilities and the volume of provider listings that we have, oftentimes our partners begin to see that waterfall or that cascade effect, where somebody who didn't even wind up accepting their offer provides a referral. And they send somebody else in that they may know who's interested in purchasing a vehicle, because we designed that process to be a premium experience for the private seller. And we see that customer base begin to grow. And another metric I know many general managers and dealer principals watch is that advertising cost per vehicle. And I think a strong street purchase strategy with a system like Van can provide a dealership with additional showroom traffic just by following the process.
No question. Mark, the marketplace is efficient. Buyers and sellers have equal amounts of information now. The internet fixed our inefficient marketplace and made it efficient. So what we have left as retail dealers are 2 things. What is our approach, and what is our level of service? Those are the 2 things we have left as retail dealers. So that essentially turns a retail dealership into an experience store. So what's the experience when a consumer comes to your store and gets an appraisal? We all know that they've looked up the value of the car. They all have access because of the efficient marketplace. They have as much information as we do, with maybe the exception of some of the software vendor tools that manage inventories, meaning vAuto or tools just like that. But other than that, they have access to the same tools we do. So now what you're down to, when a customer wants to sell their car privately, or they want to sell it through the vehicle acquisition network, is simply this: what's going to be your approach to that customer? What's going to be your level of service? And have you really turned your process into an experience? Even though may not capture 100% of them, you've made an impression on that customer that they're going to carry with them throughout whatever lifetime events they're going to have when it comes to automobile purchases. And acquiring a customer and keeping them is the number 1 thing on the mind of every franchise dealer in America right now. We all work really hard, Mark, on trying to conquest customers. OEMs work on it with you if you're a franchise dealer. You know how many non-brand, they even give conquest cash on vehicles from time to time. Well, how many vehicles can you conquest from other dealers using Van? That would be a really good exercise for every dealer to think about that presently has the tool.
I think that's a fantastic point, and something Tom Gregg, who we're fortunate to have join us as well, has talked about market share within a dealership's territory, and having a strong street purchase strategy can enable a dealership to. Well, Tom, I'd love for you to interject on market share as it applies to a strong street purchase strategy.
Was a number of things to consider. Hey, Ed, good to see you. One of the things that when you consider what Viata looks at, obviously they're comparing market data. And one of the things that tipped me off on why I wanted to contact private sellers and snag those cars, because frankly, a consumer, if they're looking for vehicles, they have choices whether they want to choose to do business with maybe a car dealer, or perhaps they want to buy from another independent private seller. So if those independent private sellers are posted at a lower price, it does in turn impact the decisions that consumers have to make. If you can eliminate those cars that may be priced lower than what the retail price is, and bring those into the fold and reset based on what that price is to market price, you're actually changing the dynamic for the baseline price of cars. Right. So I feel that has an impact on market share, because you're really adjusting overall and beyond the market share, not only the pricing, but the total pie of the retailable vehicles for a car dealer. Right. So when you look at how many cars are available for sale in the private market, how many cars are available for sale in the dealer network, if we can tip the scale and start taking cars away from the private independent market and add it to the dealer network, we're actually expanding the overall pie for the industry. And I feel quite proud of what Van has been able to do with being one of the first in the market to champion the cause, provide solutions, and now to bring people like you into the mix to help support and train our dealers to really see the light. So absolutely. Yeah, we feel pretty strongly about the market share that what we're doing for the industry.
It's an excellent point.
And I guess, well, you know, a humble brag or not, Van, I believe is the leading, you know, private party solution. But even acknowledging that, we know that the technology alone never takes a dealer partner all the way. It's always a combination of people, process, and technology. And something that we have coined the term, not a new term, but a term for a dealership partner's user being a champion, because they really champion and advocate the entire street purchase strategy throughout the dealership. And we think that that's a key to success. And then, of course, documenting your processes, which we talk a lot about on our webinars. And it doesn't matter if it's a composition notebook or a piece of software, as long as you have those steps down and the entire team's clear, just like any good play in sports. And I promise that'll be my only analogy. But Ed, I know that you work with dealers often and understand the importance of having the right people and the right process in place before you implement any technology.
No question. And you know, Mark, I look at an acquisition department as a profit center. It may not have a place departmentally on your financial statement if you're a franchise dealer, but I certainly look at it that way. I actually encourage dealers, if they're looking at an acquisition center, to look at it and say, I'm going to make this a profit center. I'm going to apply resources to it. I'm going to apply my human capital to it. I'm going to apply marketing to it. And I'm going to measure it by the metrics of performance. And it can't be a part-time job. You know, we don't ask our technicians in our service departments to go out and detail cars because they're valuable employees. If we asked, not that detailers are not valuable, but technicians have skilled training. They have a toolbox full of tools. They go to school all the time, and they are probably the most technologically advanced employees we have in our dealerships today, because they have to use diagnostic tools. They have to be basically masters of electronics to even work on a vehicle today. So we would never ask a technician to go do something outside their wheelhouse of productivity. And we measure productivity closely with technicians. But when it comes to an acquisition department, or when it comes to buying vehicles off the street, it's many times treated like, well, if you don't have anything else to do, you can go ahead talk to these customers that maybe want to sell their car. And then we go, well, it isn't working, so I guess we'll just abandon it. Well, it wouldn't work if you had your technicians doing other things, or you had your sales managers doing accounting. We treat it like a part-time job in most cases. And frankly, the minute that it's treated like a real department with real expenses and real productivity metrics, the magic happens. Amazing. We start buying more cars, and then all of a sudden we start selling more cars because we have more cars. And now we have a lot more customers in our owner base. And we go, well, what the heck happened? Well, because we took it seriously and treated it like a real department within a dealership. And frankly, if I was to give you the number one reason why it's successful in some stores and not, it's because they treat it as if it's a real department and apply resources to it, and actually take the time to outline a very succinct process for the consumer to go through and for the employees to follow. And all consumers want is to know what's next. That's all they want. And frankly, they just want a transparent clarity to establishing what's fair market value for my car and how easy it would be for me to dispose of it and walk away. That has not been what retail franchise car dealers have been known for. We've been known to make it a little more friction filled than that. And if you treat your department as if it has zero friction, total clarity, and customers would enjoy the experience, believe me, you'll have phenomenal success.
Thank you very much, Ed. I know we're running short on time today, but I personally look forward to it. I know Tom looks forward to speaking to you more in the future. Appreciate you joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you.